Good afternoon. Happy to greet you at Media Center, Ukraine in nuclear form. 97th day of the war lasts. War for our freedom and independence. Olga Tmanova is with you. And briefly about the agenda of briefings that today our team has prepared. At 1 o'clock, our studio will be joined by Petro Kotnia, head of Energoatom, and we will talk about the state of nuclear objects in Ukraine. At 3, we prepared for the journalists the meeting of records, expert meeting that will be devoted to the events that are happening in Crimea. We will speak about if it's possible to deblock the Republic of Crimea. And Dmytro Novytskyi will speak now, head of Association of Vodokanal of Ukraine and president of Vodokanal, water utility. And we will talk about renewal of water supplies to deoccupied territories. Mr. Dmytro, the floor is yours. Glory to Ukraine. I wanted to say that I'm not a president of Kyivvodokanal. I'm the president of Kyivvodokanal Ecology that unites 160 enterprises, and 100 out of them are the biggest Vodokanal water utilities of Ukraine. We coordinate activities of our enterprises, and we try to help water utilities to solve their issues, also the ones that are in the zone of war. We divided them into 3 categories: those who were directly in the war zone, those who were in the risk zone of risk of capturing or bombardment, or those that are more in the west of Ukraine that have additional problems with the increase of water consumers quantity, because the system did not provide that rapid increase. Therefore, our approaches were different to them. We proposed series of changes to the legislation that would assist, ensure activities of Vodokanal in that period. Also, tax, the ones on the critical imports regarding the fees for consumers, because the first 2 categories had a decrease of consumers. And according to legislation, we have to count according to the norm. And so happened that if we would count like this, we would issue to the consumers more, we would take more money from them than we actually supply, which is wrong. But they reacted fastly and changed the legislation properly. So we made adjustments to make the fees objective. Right now, we coordinate our operations with Vodokanal water utilities that are in the risk zones and also have been freed from occupation. Civil society is discussing about fast renewal of water supplies to Irpin, and this was our first important project. In 18 days, we implemented the project of 7 kilometers, 2 pipes from Kyiv to Irpin. This way we supplied not only drinking water, but what's the main important is also water for extinguishing fire, which was the acute problem that arises in water canals and in all 3 categories, because the bombardments are ongoing, regretfully, and we had to ensure extinguishing fire. That's an important function. Right now, water utility, water canal ecology is working with many other cities, Makarev, Dmytro, Trostenets in Sumy region, and we assist, we help Kharkiv and Sumy as well, because they're water canals that water utility that is one of the biggest in Ukraine that was directly in the under bombardment or in the war zone. So it's very important to help them. Also, the help of international financial organization is very important. And the association, it coordinates these operations. We created a single database of our capabilities, representatives of the association that operate in business and business of Ukraine, and assistance of foreign companies, and also the needs of water canals that have. So this way we can mutually help each other. If they need a pump, we solve the issue. How to get that, where to get that pump, how to finance that. And I would like to thank the Red Cross using the opportunity and UNICEF for fast reaction to the needs of water canals, for water utilities. We provided for over 100 million of hryvnia water canals with equipment. So, and we could renew the water supplies fast. Now the questions, please, do you know how much money you need to renew the water supplies in the freed cities, the cities that were freed from occupants? I cannot tell you the exact amount. Probably no one can. Why? Because there are different situations in different water canals in different regions due to deoccupation of cities. For instance, the biggest ruining was in Irpin, and their needs were actually need to react really fast to renew the water supplies. But Bucha, that everybody speaks about due to the tragedy that happened there, a lot of victims among civilians, but the system of water supplies there was damaged less than in Irpin, for instance. So in each town, in each city, it's different. And now we really have to make changes or pass additional documents about fast assessment of losses that arise in water supplies. For instance, in Chernihiv, a lot of work has to be done there. And we did a lot because they almost ruined the pump station and the control panels as well. So we have to assess the losses to the water supply systems, and it has to be a fastened procedure. Also, they have to fasten procedure of elaborating the projects and approving the project documentation to fastly renew water supplies. I cannot name the cities, but we made assistance and renewed the water supplies. But in this city, still, they elaborate the project documents to, so to speak, implement those works documentally, to launch the new renewal systems documentally, to do the proper paperwork. It's a complex process, therefore changes are needed to the legislation. So when we free the most urban cities in Lugansk and Donetsk region, the need in that actions will be more. Therefore, there should be changes to the procedure of assessment of losses and elaboration and improvement of project documentation. What about Mykolaiv? What is the situation right now? Yes, in Mykolaiv, over a month, it had no drinking water in central system. Now, thanks to the joint actions of Vodokanal, of local authorities, of thermal energy organization, Mykolaiv, they actually could make technical water supplies, as we say provisionally, but it's not a proper term. We can say about centralized water supplies of water that has deviation to the state sanitary rules and norms. It's a bit saltish, but it's safe for people. It's not recommended for drinking, not as drinking water. It has to be cleaned additionally, but it's possible to extinguish fire with it, and for sanitary use of the population. And they bring portable water for drinking. They have the opportunity to provide via special vessels the drinking water for the population for the needs, for the functioning of the city. Now I'm aware there are procedures of providing the possibilities to renew the water supplies of fresh water to the cleaning facilities. The international organizations are involved with that, also the Red Cross. But you understand it's difficult to talk to the enemies. What technologies do you use for cleaning the water? The technologies, regretfully, the technologies that we use to have, it's very difficult for example, to change them fast, so we use the same technology as we used to. The reagents, there's a certain problem with them because the relocation has happened with the producers of reagents. Many producers were located in the territories that are now either occupied or in the risk zone. Therefore, the logistics supply chains were broken. Now they are renewed. There are certain difficulties, but I'm convinced that Vodokanals today, they have necessary reagents. With thanks of critical imports also, we managed to issue changes to the list of imported materials fast, and those reagents are also brought from abroad. There is such an opportunity. Also, there are organizations that provide that kind of humanitarian aid of supplying those reagents. What is the situation with the labor resources right now, and what's the most important problems you face during the period of war? Indubitably, the first days we had a certain outflow of our personnel. But I can say, luckily, our personnel stayed in place. We lost some personnel due to the draft to the military. Some of them went to serve. Also, some females with children, they had to leave to the western parts of Ukraine or some abroad. Right now, for the most part of Vodokanal, of water utilities that are located far from direct war zone or far from risk zones, the employees are returning, and all of them operate in the regular regime. Right now, due to economical problems, business, regretfully, is not operating, and there are proposals of personnel services to hire new personnel. The debts of the population for water, what it amounts to, and what is ways to solve it. I would rephrase this. We're not talking about debts of consumers. We're talking about that actually the Vodokanals, the first and second group that I was speaking about, there was in a war zone or a risk zone, they actually felt the decrease of income from the consumers. Therefore, the association provided proposals to the Ministry of Regional Development and the Chamber of Ministers on financial aid. Why? Because we are monopolies. We work in a framework of existing tariffs, and those money that we don't get, we cannot spend for buying reagents and electricity. So we cannot shorten our expenses objectively, even though we had less consumers. We have the same expenses, all the same. So we have to ensure the technological process, nonetheless. Also, the employees are working in difficult conditions, and we have to pay their salaries. And the financial problems that arise, they need to be covered from some source. For us, it's either tariffs or budget. The tariffs cannot provide for our expenses, so we initiate, request from aid from budgets of different levels. The civil society has to solve it. It could be local budgets, it could be the state budget. However, the community overall has to solve this issue on what expense to provide financial aid to Vodokanals. Those Vodokanals that actually require this, because not all of them. Those Vodokanals that are, for instance, closer to the western region, they have a different situation. Therefore, we need to elaborate a certain algorithm of defining the necessity of Vodokanal and the source of financing of this financial aid. Traditional support, national aid. Do you expect international aid? Yes. Right now, within a framework of one of the tasks of the National Council of Renewal of Ukraine, the association is working in the subgroup that is working under the Ministry of Regions, and we are elaborating the means and events that has to be scheduled, that what we have to do firsthand until the end of this year, and those that we have to do until 2025 and until 2032. Short-term, mid-term, and long-term planning, and indubitably without kind of financial help of our foreign international organizations or donor organization, we won't be able to do it, because actually those problems that arose in water canals, they require huge attention of community. Because one of our proposals is we have to renew the elaboration of strategic of development of water supplies and sewage. Such operations were started before the war, or defined the source. It's created of the World Bank. The winner was defined. We had maybe to finalize or change the technical task for the winner, for the strategy to be there, to be present, so we will understand what finances have to be engaged for renewal of the sphere and to ensure sustainable development. And I want to say the places where there's active war right now in Donetsk region that Ukraine controls, and Lugansk region where Ukraine controls. Is it possible to timely renew water supplies there? And how is that problem solved? Our colleagues are working. It's extremely hard conditions. Even under bombardments, they're trying to fix the emergencies. Donbas Voda, Donbas Water. It's a very spread enterprise. It's a huge water canal, one of the biggest in Ukraine. They try to renew water supplies, but there are situations, of course, when it's practically impossible to operate. For instance, if there is no electric supply, and it's impossible to be renewed or to be restored, so there is then no capability to provide the service of water supplies. And here I'd like to point your attention to one more issue. We have to learn to work in difficult conditions. We have to answer the challenge, tackle the challenge that we have, and work in the situation when such problems arise. Or water supplies is broken. Possibly I have to make alternative water, so take from alternative water source, or look for additional sources of electric supplies, because our equipment doesn't work without electric supplies. So we have to elaborate separate plans for each establishment, for each enterprise, regarding operation in the military time. Those plans exist, but to implement them, to ensure the implementation of those means, we also need financial aid. Colleagues, your questions, please. Good day. Three short questions. Which cities or towns or settlements suffer the most problems with water supplies? You mentioned Irpin, some Bucha, and will there be increase of water tariffs in autumn? And how would be payment for water in advance for utilities with the framework of the heating season? The enterprise of water supplies, they work with the framework of legislation. We have no right to invent any means or provide any other mechanisms. I will start from the end, okay? The tariff has to be reviewed, because the cost of reagents increased, the cost of equipment increased, and it's a clear situation. At the same time, we can say that if the community decides that it's impossible to increase the tariff due to the situation that we have, economical situation in the country, the ability to pay of consumers decreased. We understand that, we're aware. So we have to elaborate the source of covering the costs of water canals, covering the expenses. If we freeze the tariffs, if we hold the tariffs, that has to be objective figure that we get from the other source, and that could be only the budget. Regarding the enterprises that consume, that need more, also the enterprises that are in other regions. European Bucha, Hostomel, Blika, Dmytro, Novytskyi, and Sumy region, Chernihiv. Those are the cities that we could already go there, our specialists, and make the assessment and more propose to international financial organizations to finance the means on fixing, the Red Cross or UNICEF. That's an ongoing process in process. Now our military will free the territories in the Kharkiv region. We see positive changes in that direction. And also we expect freeing Luhansk and Donetsk region. It's the most urbanized area. In any small town, there was water supplies. And we expect the biggest problems there. Therefore, fast reaction of assessment of damages to renew fast. It's very, very important. It's crucial. We propose to create a certain group of project management so they fastly come, make the reports, make the proposal, and make a proposal for financing. Is it possible to compensate of keeping the old tariffs with the help of international donors, international financial aid? Like with the gas, for instance, with Naftogaz, they did it. We are raising that issue regarding financial support to the enterprises of water supplies and water. Regarding the help of the population, it's not a question more to our sphere. It's more a question to the Ministry of Social Policy. And indubitably, we support such initiatives that are aimed at supporting our consumers, supporting their ability to pay for centralized water supply. We have two sources, either tariffs or the budgets. If consumers cannot pay for the tariffs, we have to look other sources for our water canals to procure electricity, to procure reagents, and to pay the salaries of employees. We have to support the consumers. How we have to do it? The community has to answer that question. There is a Ministry of Regional Development, a Ministry of Social Policy, etc. Thank you. More questions, colleagues? Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today. I remind you, Dmytro Novytskyi was with us. Dear friends, stay with us. Our next briefing will happen at 1 o'clock, and we will meet acting as President Alenger Atom. Glory to Ukraine and